The 12 labors of Hercules were not a hero's journey. They were a sentence, a punishment handed down by the gods for the worst thing a human being can do. And Hercules did it not because he was evil, not because he was corrupted by an enemy, but because a goddess drove him temporarily insane, and he could not tell what was real until it was already too late. When the madness lifted, he looked at what his own hands had done, and then he had to decide what to do with the rest of his life. Hercules, Heracles in the original Greek, was the son of Zeus and a mortal woman named Alcmene. Zeus had come to her, disguised as her husband, which means Hercules was born already carrying the particular weight of being divine in a way that nobody around him had agreed to. Hera, Zeus's wife, hated him from the moment he was conceived, not because of anything he had done, but because of what his existence represented, a living proof of her husband's faithlessness. She tried to kill him as an infant. She sent 2 serpents into his crib. The infant Hercules strangled both of them. He grew into something the world had not quite seen before: enormous physical strength, genuine courage, and a fundamental decency that the ancient sources preserve with consistency. He was not a perfect man. He had a terrible temper, and he did not always think before acting. But the oldest layers of the tradition describe a man who genuinely wanted to do right and genuinely loved the people close to him. He married. He had children. For a time, he was simply a man with a family and the kind of physical gifts that made extraordinary things possible for him. Then Hera moved again. Hera sent madness into Hercules, divine insanity, total and complete, the kind that does not feel like madness from the inside because it replaces reality with something that feels entirely real. In his madness, Hercules believed he was under attack. The ancient sources differ slightly on the exact vision. In some he believed his own children were enemies. In some the delusion was more complete. What every version agrees on is the outcome. When the madness lifted and the world returned to what it actually was, Hercules found that he had killed his own children. Some versions include his wife. Some do not. The number of children varies. What does not vary is the nature of what had happened and what it meant. He had done the unforgivable, through no fault of his own character, through a divine intervention designed specifically to destroy him by using his own strength against the people he loved most. He had become the agent of the worst thing he could possibly have done. He went to the oracle at Delphi to ask what he must do. The oracle gave him to the service of King Eurystheus of Tiryns, a lesser man, a frightened man, a man who was visibly afraid of Hercules, and who would spend their entire association sending him on tasks designed to be impossible, hoping one of them would finally kill him. The 12 labors were Eurystheus' attempt to use divine mandate to accomplish what Hera's serpents and Hera's madness had not managed. They did not work. The Nemean lion, a creature whose hide could not be pierced by any weapon. Hercules strangled it with his bare hands and wore its pelt as armor for the rest of his life. The Lernaean Hydra cut off one head and 2 grew back. Hercules solved this with fire, cauterizing each stump before the heads could multiply, and dipped his arrows in the creature's poisonous blood. Those arrows would matter later. The Augean stables, 30 years of manure from thousands of cattle, to be cleaned in a single day. He redirected 2 rivers through them. The Stymphalian birds, the Cretan bull, the mares of Diomedes, the girdle of Hippolyta, the cattle of Geryon, the apples of the Hesperides, the capture of Cerberus from the underworld itself. 12 tasks, each one designed to be the last. Each one survived through the combination of the physical gifts he was born with and the particular quality of mind that his terrible strength could not replace. The willingness to think differently about a problem that force alone could not solve. Eurystheus, each time, found a reason to disqualify a labor and add another. Hercules completed them anyway. The Greeks understood something about guilt and atonement that this story carries more honestly than almost any other myth in their tradition. Hercules did not do what he did. A goddess weaponized him against himself, and yet he did not use that fact to avoid responsibility for what his hands had done. He went to the oracle. He accepted the sentence. He completed every labor, including the ones Eurystheus added in bad faith, and he did it not to restore his reputation or to win glory, but because the weight of what had happened demanded that his strength be turned entirely outward, toward the world, for as long as the sentence required. The labors were not his finest hour. They were his penance, and the man who completed them was not the same man who stood in the rubble of everything he had loved. He was something forged from that grief, shaped by it, harder and more careful, and more aware of what his strength could destroy if it was not precisely aimed. The greatest hero in Greek mythology began not with a quest, but with a loss he could not undo, and a decision about what to do next. That decision is the story. The next myth on this channel goes back further, to the very first human woman in Greek mythology, assembled by every god on Olympus as a punishment, carrying a sealed container that would change the world the moment it was opened. The complete story of Pandora, and what was actually left inside the jar when she finally closed it again.